where does the number 13 come from? We spoke about superstition and things having power over us only if we grant it. Okay? So how many high-rise buildings have you seen with a gap between floor 12 and 14?
Yeah.
How many aeroplanes have you seen with a gap between rows 12 and 14? Okay? So let's cut the crap. Okay? 13, the reason I've come up with 13 is 365 days a year, whatever it is. Basically, it's about sharing the workload equally of being the facilitator. And so basically, everybody does 28 days work for their group, except 1 year every leap year, somebody does 1 extra day, and that's about as fair as you can get. That's why the number 13. Okay. Plus the lunar cycle.
Jesus and his 12 disciples makes 13.
Yeah, there you go. Plenty of things, okay?
Your majority, by the way, is 11 of them. Ties into the Supreme Court.
Yeah, okay. And so basically, with the 80%, you've got to convince 11 out of 13 that your idea is a good idea, and you one of them. Therefore, you only need to convince 10 other markets. You know, it gives everybody a fair crack at the whip, basically. Okay, so the next part of the strategy, like I say, first we learn about and empower ourselves. And so at the moment, until we build up a new alternative, we've got to work with the existing. This again is perfectly equitable, because what we've got to do is allow them the opportunity to mend their ways. Okay? And so that's the idea behind the core auditor course. Because again, like you'll see, the system is good. It's bad actors. And so the final part of the strategy will be, when I get around to it, I've got to do this structure, and Anne's kindly volunteered to try and help me explain what I drew sort of in nice, pretty pictures and language, so that people understand it. So that gives us the structure, and the idea of that, okay, is for the rule of law, the foundation of how we interact with everything in all of our affairs. It's got nothing to do with project orientation, because 13 is not a good number for that. There's a lot of science to support that 8 is quite a good number for that. If you want an effective team to achieve a task, if you've got too many, it becomes ineffective. If you've got too few, it's also ineffective. And 8 seems to be the magic number of that. Okay. So, and how people choose to do task-orientated stuff is totally entirely up to them. But what I'm trying to say is, when we do anything else, okay, everybody can expect this is how we will behave. Okay, and when dispute arises, this is how we will resolve dispute. So that then gives us the structure of the foundation, and it will include, basically, we create our own courts. Just like I said, we can create our own man hours. Okay, no different from Tesco having their private currency of the club loyalty card. Nobody can stop us doing this, okay? Because we're doing it in the private. The difference between the private and the public is basically where the public is something which applies to everybody as opposed to the private. So when people talk about a lot of these people with trusts and saying, oh, you've got to sign an NDA and all of this sort of nonsense, okay? It doesn't matter. We can put our rules out there. If you want to join our club, if you want to join our knitting club, if you want to join our tennis club, if you want to join any of our clubs, it's a private club. But these are the publicly available rules that you can choose to consent to. Okay? So, and hopefully you see by now that the concept is, in my own right, we are all equal kings and queens. Nobody can tell anybody else what to do. Okay? So we joining together by our free will. So today is an example, and yesterday and today. Nobody's been coerced. Okay? We're all here by free will. So this is the idea, and we've got to stop hiding. Trusts are an instrument of fraud to me. If you need to hide what you've got from the public, to me that's shame. You can't stand proud upon what you've done and what you've got. And so at the end of the day, I see trust as an instrument of fraud, and they are an instrument of fraud. Because if people are hiding this stuff, how can everybody get a fair share of the pie? Okay? So the court ordered to cause...
Can I answer that, please?
Yeah?
I mean, I'm an MFN in Universal Law Community Trust. We use trust to protect our assets. It's not to hide, to protect ourselves from the system.
Correct. We need to transition.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So while I agree in principle, in an ideal world, what you're saying is absolutely right.
Look, that's the vision we need to get across.
Yes.
Where are we going?
Yes.
If we don't know where we're
and
going.
I see this as a transitional phase.
Yeah.
So universal law offers a foundation for us to get to that point.
And so think about what I was saying about the structure, okay, and how that. I mean, I've spoken to Elizabeth quite a lot in discussions about her stuff. Is just, I'm not a stupid person, okay, and I don't get what she's doing, and she can't explain it to me. And like you're aware with the Imovans, lots of Imovans have lost a lot of their property.
But that's because of the way the system is operating,
It's
and maybe some of it is our fault
I
as
think
well.
it's being mismarketed, okay, because basically you cannot put something into trust to avoid an obligation, and that has not been effectively.
No, she's restoring our rights back to us so that we all have an equal share. We all have an equal share of the resources of the planet.
But so many people don't understand that if you don't own it, you can't put it into trust. So people have been, I'm putting my house into trust under Universal Law Community Trust.
But this is where we're showing that we are operating under the UCC1, which is restoring our rights back to the people. It's not about, even in the trust, you only have a right of use of it at the end of the day. You don't actually
but what a lot of people are doing is they don't understand the fundamentals of trust.
I agree.
You can only grant what is yours to grant.
I agree.
So if I've got a mortgage, I can't put that into trust.
Okay, but we're showing that the mortgage was created in fraud.
But that's a different issue. That's got nothing to do with trust.
Yeah, but
so we need to separate the two.
You're absolutely right, but the mechanism of getting there is the problem at the moment. It's not, you know, we're over here, but we want to get over there. And how we get over there.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is, okay, I've seen many people lose cars and houses.
Yeah, because
they
the
don't
paradigm
understand what's going on.
Yeah.
Okay.
Or because of ignorance of the police officers.
Basically, a trust. Okay, you can only give what is yours to give.
Well, the wealthy are using the very same tools.
Of course they are, but they legally own it, and therefore, lawfully they can do it.
And how have they legally owned it?
Unlawfully.
Unlawfully.
Correct.
Thank you.
So what we need to do is separate the issues. So, yes, I can put the property that I own into trust. But if I don't own it, I cannot put it into trust. If I don't own it,
but
I'm not
who
the
does own
beneficiary.
it?
Okay, so fundamentally, the question that you and we are starting to ask is, prove to me that you've loaned me money.
And they can't.
They can't. And that's the question
But
we need
we
to
have
address.
put our sweat equity into that, so we have a lawful
Yeah, but somebody
right.
else has also put equity into it. So if you've got a mortgage for 50%, you've only put in 50%, somebody else has put in 50%.
Yeah, but if you're living there, you have a right of use of that.
Correct.
If you're already living there,
Correct. But
you have a
you've
right of
agreed-
use,
But
and that's
you've
what we're
agreed
using.
by your own consent to the terms and conditions of the loan agreement and the mortgage agreement.
Out of nations, because we did not know what we did not know
Therefore, you need to address that issue
then. And
separately.
we are. And one of the mechanisms is to put it in the trust and to deal
You
with
can't
it
put
in
it into the trust because it's not yours to put in the trust.
It's
as
never
simple as
theirs
that.
to put in the trust
It doesn't
either.
matter.
But their trust is unlawful either as well.
Correct. Theirs is unlawful.
Yeah.
Okay, and that's what you need to address. That's the issue. The issue is they have created money out of nothing.
I do understand what you are trying to say.
I agree with you again.
Yeah.
all we're doing is reflecting their system back on themselves, just like you've said.
Yeah, well, it's different with, if I own it, I can put it into trust. Okay, we've got no mortgage on the house, we can put it into trust.
How many people here honestly believe that when they bought their car, they own it?
Once upon a time I did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Okay,
that was a belief.
okay, let's look at equity. Okay, equity sees the beneficiary as the true owner, hence my mind is a beneficiary of my body. Okay, so if I've gone, and equity is about substance, so if I've gone out and bought a car and put down a 50% payment, do I own 100% of the car?
No.
No.
And who
But
does?
even
But
this
who does though?
50%, you don't know.
Currently, the legal title is with...
The legal title is with them. The right of use is with us.
Well, basically, it's quite simple, okay? You try and buy a car with 50% and see if you're going to get legal title or beneficial
But
title.
again,
You
we're
won't.
operating in a fraudulent system by doing
Yes,
that.
so fraud
So we
is,
gotta
fraud
address
is
that
what
as well.
we need to address.
Yes, we absolutely have to address
And
that.
trust is not the solution to
The
address
trust is
fraud.
only there at the moment as a mechanism to protect us from that system.
No, it doesn't protect
But
us.
doesn't,
No.
We may not need trusts in so many years' time, but
Yeah,
at the moment they
it would
have
transition.
purpose.
No, and the transition is common law. Trust is well established. Okay, you cannot put an asset into trust if you've got an obligation. So you've got an obligation of the loan agreement you signed voluntarily.
To
Therefore,
pay
you
with money
cannot-
that never existed and
It doesn't
cannot be
matter.
proven to be
It doesn't matter.
existing.
The point is you cannot put it into trust.
Okay, so if
That's
you
the
do,
point.
if you
That's the
own-
But we-
simplicity of it. It's not yours to put into
But the
trust.
wealthy are doing it.
No, the wealthy are not. The
What are
wealthy
they
pay
doing
for
then?
it, they don't have mortgages on
they
it,
don't have more.
therefore they can put it into trust.
Yeah.
They've got no obligation on it.
That's
If
right.
you've
So
got
you
an
you say they
existing
don't
obliga-
pay for it. How do they do that then?
They,
Well, they're in the legal title. Okay? So the point
But
I'm trying to
legal is
make
not
is,
lawful.
correct, legal's not lawful, okay? And lawfully, you cannot give what is not yours to give. Would you agree with that?
Yeah?
Okay, so,
No, sorry.
yeah, no, absolutely,
I,
yeah,
yeah,
Okay.
you're absolutely right. Again.
right, therefore,
But this is the paradigm that we're
okay,
in.
so now the intent,
Yeah.
when you went into the mortgage, okay, was that you were borrowing on your future sweat equity to pay that back, that mortgage, and you've got the benefit of that by getting the legal title. Yeah?
Okay.
You do not hold beneficial title. Sorry, you hold beneficial title as the person that's benefiting from living in the property. However, you cannot move that into a trust and remove your obligations. Now, your obligations is, yes, I agree with you, it's fraudulent.
So that's how
However-
you would remove your obligations
Mhm.
because it was created in fraud.
Correct. So what you need to do is, until you've cleared that fraud,
through the
once you've
notices.
cleared that fraud, then you can move it into trust.
Yes.
You cannot move it into trust with an existing obligation. You need to prove the
And once
obligation is
we
fraudulent.
establish that, you don't even need the trust then after that.
Correct. This is what I'm saying. Trusts are a waste of time.
Yeah, but
You know, we need to address and focus. The issue is fraudulent creation of money.
okay, let's deal with that then.
And that is where we need to be focusing our energy rather than faffing around with trusts and all of this nonsense. Okay? And again, the proof of the pudding is people are losing their homes, they're losing their cars. Let's focus our energy on the problem. What I'm saying is the problem with society is breach of peace. Let's all focus on breach of peace. Because once we focus on breach of peace, then we address fraud, this, that, the other. But we need to start with the truth, the
And that's why
foundation.
I'm here, is to learn about all of this.
Yeah.
Because, you know, I mean,
But you see
I see the foundation of universal law is
Correct.
is
The
a great
foundation is solid.
of it.
Okay?
And that's why
Yeah.
you know, I
But to
operate
get from here to there,
Yeah.
we need to address fraud.
Yeah,
To
absolutely.
address fraud,
Absolutely.
we need to find the underlying principle of breach of
Absolutely.
peace. So we start with breach of peace, that clears out the fraud, that means we don't even need to go down the trust route. Okay? So I'm just trying to get people, we need to, it's this thing here. Okay, we need to narrow the issues to focus in the energy to the true problem.
Yeah.
Okay?
No, I agree.
So,
I mean, the
I mean,
only
we're on the
reason why
same
we're
page.
the only
okay?
yeah maybe
How
you're
do
coming
we
at
get
it from
there
this way and
is
we're coming at
different.
it from this way.
Yeah,
It's coming to the same solution.
it's coming to the same solution. The truth will always prevail. Yeah, it's fractal scales. It just takes time. Yeah.
So I've heard you say a few times, oh, there's nothing wrong with the system and it's just the people running it and it's not working quite how it should.
Yeah.
Which in some ways I agree with, but like say for example like the Misrepresentation Act, quite short, quite
Yep.
simple, very clear. But stuff like paying inheritance tax or the Coronavirus Act, there's like a shitload of thousands and thousands of
bullshit.
ridiculous bits of legislation. So
Right.
how
So
do
let's
you,
go back. Let's go back to
that
this.
is challenging court.
So let's go back to this. Okay. For the Coronavirus Act to have legal effect, okay, it says in the first paragraph, SARS-CoV-2 causes unique harm and is transmissible. Not in those words, but that's what it says. Therefore, for anything in the Act to have the force of law, guess what?
That needs to be
Prove
Prove it
it
exists,
exists, yeah.
prove it causes unique harm,
Yeah.
and prove it.
Yeah.
If you can't prove that, the rest is meaningless.
Yeah.
Okay?
So what's the solution to that then? Do you just
I know.
The solution is holding them to account to the rule of law. Okay, we'll divert a bit, but it's all relevant, okay? Because it's the same thing, how do we force it? So, Simon Dolan's case, you all know
Yeah.
about Simon Dolan's case. In the appeal of Simon Dolan's case, the judge went through, and you're familiar, okay, the first thing is, can they use the Public Health Act for coronavirus? No. It's
And you won't.
obvious.
And you work.
Can the minister or the, use the Public Health Act to enforce anything to do with coronavirus? No. Why? Equity looks at intent, substance over form. What happened was, Matt Hancock and the Lord Bethman or whatever it was, they went to the House and said, look, Parliament, we've got all these tools, including the Public Health Act, but it's not good enough. We need a Coronavirus Act to deal with coronavirus. And they said, your wishes, like mine. Okay. None of the English and Welsh secondary legislation came out from the Coronavirus Act. It's all out the Public Health Act. So why did he even go and ask for the Coronavirus Act if he doesn't need it? Okay. The second thing is, there's something called generalities and specifics. The Public Health Act is a general act, whereas the Coronavirus Act is a specific act. Therefore, Parliament assembled has actually said, specifically for coronavirus, this is the only thing you can use. Therefore, by them using the Public Health Act, it's illegal. They don't have parliamentary authority. But set that aside, okay? The Public Health Act, basically, I don't know if people are familiar with it, but basically it came out under section 45. 45B is for international stuff coming in, and 45C is for internal policies. Then it goes on 45, and this is the analysis from the appeal court. 45D he analysed, 45F he analysed, 45G he analysed, okay, blah blah blah, all the way to 45Q or P or whatever it goes to. What do you see missing there? E. No E.
Or A.
Yeah, no, sorry, A. Yeah. Okay, thank you. Okay, there's no 45E. Do you know what 45E says?
Nope, tell us.
2 sentences. You cannot regulate any prophylactic, any medical treatments.
Yeah, if they're prophylactic.
And the second sentence says prophylactic treatments mean vaccination. Sorry, you cannot do any regulate any medical treatments. Medical treatments are vaccinations, or any other prophylactic medication. Darn! I can't do what I'm doing
No.
because of that
Yeah.
in the Public Health Act. So, this, when I first went through it, and the chippy on the side got pissed off because they had to wear masks when they went to macro or whatever it is to buy their chips, and so I said, don't worry, I've just done an analysis of this, and that's all bullshit. Because 45E means you can't do anything that they've done. Okay? So, my question is, was this corruption? Was this honest mistake? Or was it? Why did the judge miss it out?
I wonder.
I wonder.
Maybe it was just because that would have underlined all the fraud.
Possibly. Prove it now. So, honest mistakes, the best we can say. How much did Simon Dolan spend on lawyers? And how much did the government spend on lawyers? How much did this whole thing cost?
How much did
£600
Simon
or something?
Dolan collect on crowdfunding?
Yeah, I think it cost, I know maybe Simon had to put in 400,000 out of his hundreds of millions. But this thing must have cost millions altogether. Right, I've said to you about my draft reserve judgment. The first thing I do is I read the bloody thing to see, I read the end and says, shit, she's ruled against me. Then I read and say, oh, this is why you're wrong, this is why you're wrong, this is why you're wrong, this is why you're wrong. So, when this judgment was given to the barristers and the solicitors, why did not one of them read it and point out 45 years missing?
Because they're corrupted.
Because guess what? If they would have pointed that out, coronavirus nonsense would have finished in October 2020, and they would have not been able to make any more money out of it.
Yes.
Okay? So, and this is an example of the beauty of judge-made law, or judicial decisions.
So these 45s, is this the Public Health Act?
Yeah, this is the Public Health Act.
So is every corporation subject to the Public Health Act?
No?
Right. The reason I ask, we love going on cruises, we're unjabbed, and every policy at the moment says you've got to be jabbed.
That's discrimination.
Yeah.
You need to start suing.
Well, this is what I'd like to do, and I'm not quite sure how to angle it, but
Basically, with the notices, okay, you want vaccination, prove that vaccinations have a legitimate aim, do their work, that it reduces reduces the risk of me getting COVID, reduces the risk of me spreading COVID, and if you can't show that, your policy is unlawful and discriminatory.
so would I write to the CEO, the data
The whole
protection?
fucking lot of them,
Okay,
honestly.
yeah,
Okay?
I'll do that.
But this is what we've got to start doing, saying, hey, hang on, this is irrational what you're doing. Lord Diplock says if you're acting irrationally, it's unlawful. Therefore, you're discriminating, and therefore now I can see under the Discrimination Equality Act. Okay. So, but the point here, okay, and this is really the point of the court auditor course, okay? The legal profession has a conflict of interest.
Yeah.
So, as a result of this, multi-millions resulted, and that's fraud, okay? But again, you see how the system is designed perfectly equitable. This immediately should have been pointed out by the barristers, just like I did with my judgment, and said, hey, hang on guys, there's these errors and omissions. Therefore, that judgment is void, because it's irrational. That's how simple it is.
Can someone else put
It's about enforcement.
Yeah.
If you're not one of the parties in the case, but it's a public, so
Everybody has the right to intervene.
someone else could have put them on notice
Yeah.
and said, hey, this is that.
And this is what we've got to start doing. Okay, but to do that, we need to understand the system, but we need to know where we're going with it. What's our final vision?
So, is that something that I could do, serve notice to a cafe that refuses
A
to
cafe,
accept cash?
anybody. Cash, something.
So,
Any injustice, any wrong. That's what you do with the notices. You create the facts, the evidence, and get your witnesses.
So is there any chance that the corporation who are demanding this, can they say, well, it's our company policy, you choose not to do business with us, that's your choice, but we're
You
not.
are a public company and you cannot discriminate.
I was going to say with cash, during the lockdown, I just did a notice and pulled out the things which says it's illegal to actually not
Correct.
accept cash.
Correct. Basically, the way it works with cash, that falls under the that's the 1882 Rules of Exchange. And basically, if I offer to settle the claim with legal tender and you refuse, you've dishonoured me. So long as I can evidence I've attempted to settle the claim lawfully and you dishonoured, that claim is settled.
So I
And you
have
offer
to
it
make
3
videos
times.
showing that they won't accept my cash.
Correct. Sorry, what?
You offer it 3 times.
3 times.
Okay.
Fact, witness 1, witness 2.
But why have they got to accept your cash?
Because that's legal tender.
It's legal.
Legally, under legislation, they
It's
must.
still legal tender.
What, digital bank credit ain't legal tender?
It
One
might be,
exists, yeah.
it might be deemed or not, but cash is legal tender.
Yeah.
Therefore, they cannot refuse cash.
Yes.
But that argument about when you go to buy something and then there is no debt if they refuse, does that mean that that property is yours?
Correct.
Yes.
They've accepted by their dishonour that it's yours.
And I've got examples of people doing that.
Okay, sorry, yeah?
There's this law that came in a while back, and I'm a landlady, so I rent property, I don't have that much, but 2 flats. But it basically came in and it was saying that landlords aren't able to use the amount of interest that they pay on their mortgage against like tax and notwithstanding like whether you pay tax
Okay,
or
they're
not.
not
and
allowing you
it's
to do it as an
So
expense.
the Landlord Association got together and then they went and hired Cherie Blair to like, and surprise, they lost the case, but it actually went to judicial review.
Yeah.
The question is there any way back from that after it's all gone to judicial review?
Yeah, when there's a criminal
element,
element, we bring fraud cases against them in private prosecution, which is what comes after the court order.
Okay, so it doesn't even matter that it's gone
We've
that
got to
far.
stop playing their game.
Yeah.
Appeals, judicial review, all of this crap, that's their game. We have the power to hold them to account for crimes against the mind, crimes against our body, and crimes against our property. So we just shortcut the crap. We use the notices to set them up. That's our pre-action protocol. Whether they like it or not, that we don't go through their internal dispute. I don't need to do all the crap. This is what I'm doing as my pre-action protocol. Okay? So we've got to now turn it that we start taking it to them. Okay, one more question and then I'll...
I'm just wondering if, like, I know there's been so many legal cases around the world for all these principles,
Yeah.
that if, say, for example, in England, I mean, I know there was a case in Canada with the king where he said, well, you can't produce the
Yeah.
virus, so therefore, you know, but can we use those cases in England, or does it apply?
Okay, we'll be talking about jurisdiction, so when we talk about jurisdiction, we'll talk about that. Okay. Okay.
Just one quick one. Magistrates' courts,
Yeah.
they're not courts of record as civil courts when
No.
they hear council.
Also for criminal matters, they're not courts of record.
Okay.
They're just not courts of record.
Okay.
Okay, then we'll look specifically. Okay, so basically, like I said, the strategy is to self-empower people, know their rights, then how are we going to be able to protect ourselves? This system here is a way, is actually a way that we can start to protect ourselves. People are having a lot of problems with the Mental Health Act, and they're trying to say, mark you a loony and a lot of that sort of thing. So what we do is, wherever we've got the triangle, we'll just draw it here. So basically, if we call this grassroots levels, okay, and facilitator level 1. What happens is you entrust your property into your group. The group is the trustee, and you cannot be involved in the decisions about your property that you grant into the trust. Okay, so we all put our assets into trust, and we cannot make decisions based upon our assets.
But I just thought you said trusts are unlawful.
This is what I'm talking about is the transition.
All right, brilliant. So we're on the same page.
Yeah.
ULCT is doing the right
No,
thing.
no. We can only put in trust what we have the right to put in trust, as opposed to what UCLT or whatever it is. They're saying whether you own it or not, just put it in trust.
Well, we have the
It'll be all fine.
UCC1 filing, which gives us that
Yeah.
authority.
But anyway.
We can talk about that.
So basically, what you're doing is, we now are saying, we make a lasting power of attorney for our mind. I.e., should I lose my mind, I entrust that all of you make a decision what is in your belief the best of my interest. Okay? And that way the state cannot interfere with the Mental Health Act with anybody.
Can I just ask,
Yeah.
because me and my husband have each made lasting power of attorneys,
Yeah.
can we then make a further one, or does that preclude us from making another one?
No, whatever you create, you can uncreate. You can revoke it and change it and do whatever you want as the grantor.
But it does mean that the ones that me and my husband made would not stand as they have done if we then entrust it to the group.
What? No, but you grant and you trust. Okay, we grassroots group A. I grant, should my mind be deemed insane by somebody else, I entrust my mind to you as trustees of my mind to do what you guys think is best for my mind. Nobody can intervene. This is now a private matter. If I don't do that, and something happens to my mind, you are deemed abandoned, and the state claims you. That's how they do it. Okay? So we need to act like adults and put our affairs into proper order. If we don't, it reverts to the state.
Actually, something interesting Obama said. He said the only reason government exists is because we don't take care of our own affairs.
Yeah, no, there's a huge amount. Honestly, I don't believe this conspiracy stuff as you might have gathered about. Okay, so here is a tool that we can start to use to manage our own affairs very, very rationally and very, very sensibly. Because basically, we are of a similar belief. We've agreed to follow a certain code of conduct between us, and therefore, the likelihood, how's anybody going to shaft anybody? If there's a group of 13, if anybody shows any self-interest in there, they're going to get shafted when it's their turn by that group of 13. Okay? And so we've got a self-policing, basically, justice system contained within a very local group. And so basically people who own property outright, that's what you do. You entrust it into, you create the trust. Only problem is, do you trust those people? Okay? And so you need to design a mechanism whereby you take into account human nature. Okay? So you can put all your property into trust now, all of a sudden, guess what? Klaus Schwab, spot on. You own nothing, but you have all the benefit.
Yes.
A mirror.
Yes.
That's what you got. Then you can do further things with that, okay? If there's enough money, you basically start to pay off one mortgage, and that becomes communal property until that person pays the community back.
Unless you prove that it is fraud, and then you don't.
Yeah, no, but you can't put anything into trust until there's no obligation associated with it. And whether it's fraud or not, it's still a claim against your property.
Okay, so this 1099 thing.
1099 we'll talk about separately.
All right.
I think that's a waste of
We
time.
can talk about that outside. Yeah,
Waste of time.
absolutely agree with Calvin. No
If people
evidence
have been
of
doing
work.
it for years, they've got zero out of it, so what's
Okay.
the point in looking at it?
Well, I can give you some proof
We're-
afterwards.
Yeah, and Anna's going to show us and then teach us all how to do it, because we're going to have a specialist group so that we all can benefit from it. But basically, okay, back to more basics. I think the important points have been discussed now, and really this is all foundational. So basically the court auditor course starts through at the beginning the same as the notice. It goes over basically, without consent there can be no duties, rights and obligations. Only way is through consent. So it structures the arguments that we've been through yesterday and earlier today.